Lobster Magnet. Lobster's a 10 item, don't you grab it.
Yes!
Hey, welcome to Lobster Magnet Friends. We're reviewing our favorite Salaryman anime, which just animated one of my favorite arcs from the manga. What do you think of the good old-fashioned, the Yakuza storyline?
I'm so hyped. Oh my god, the adrenaline's still pumping through me after that episode. This is like such a good episode. Holy crap! And I didn't get this far in the manga, but
I thought I got you this far because I was really hyped when I read this in the manga originally, and I was like, Greg, you gotta read this.
I don't think I saw the part where he blinded and paralyzed him.
You never got to see the retribution part where he gets the vengeance against the Yakuza, the hive of scum and villainy.
No, I didn't get. I don't think I got up to that point, but I saw up to the point where the girl takes the katana and is about to fight for defend herself.
I thought you got you up to the part where whatchamacallit, where they break into her apartment and then they almost kill the guy.
Oh, maybe that was the last thing I saw.
Because that was the big moment I loved in the manga where he just pushes through them and he's just knocking them aside and they're trying to hold him back and then he comes up to the huge Yakuza.
The big dude, he can't physically smash him, so he decides to shoot him in the head. And
exactly, he's like, "Roar! Roar!"
God, this is so good. This I think the anime actually improves the pacing of the manga too.
Well, it's a lot. I was really pleased with how this is animated, but I do felt I don't know. I feel like it felt a little rushed. I feel like you could have spread that over 2 episodes because I was noticing scenes that they cut out in the manga, and they weren't super important scenes, but they would have helped with tension and build up. For an example, when she's after the guy sees her. Well, there's a scene where she's shopping in a bookstore, and then the guy's there, and he's just looking at her like a predator, leering at his prey, and then she calls him up and says, Satoru, oh, I'm so scared. This big man was looking at him. And then she walks out and then they kidnap her. Because I do love the dread of that guy. He's such a great minor villain in the fact that they established that he's this inhuman presence. He's huger, larger than everyone. He's just this towering force that nobody can deal with. He just walks into a bathhouse and says, "Suck my dick." All you can do is suck the dick. It's not a gay or straight thing. It is just pure animal power and dominance.
Yeah, he is a really terrifying character, and especially how they build him up in the manga. But with a story like this, though, you know that the main protagonist he's not gonna have as difficult time dealing with someone like this.
True. They're Inuyashiki takes care of it in 1 episode, and everything is resolved as it should be. You're right. It's funny. We're going to talk about this is one extreme of pacing, and we're going to soon talk about Black Clover, which is the opposite of extreme of pacing.
Oh my god, yes, they're just polar opposites. We're watching good and evil in the anime right now.
Well, and I can understand that argument in the sense that this is not the Yakuza manga. This should be dealt with in 1 episode.
Yeah.
And it does a good job of condensing that material and getting through it. But just, I don't know. I just want it maybe 20% a little bit slower.
Yeah.
But
I think
in that sense, it felt like someone got an order. It's the Yakuza storyline is great, but we got to do this 1 episode. We're going to the end. We're doing all this in 12 episodes, so we can't waste time on it. We got other stuff to do.
Yeah. I'm not bothered about that at all. Really, how they sped things up. But I think the reason for that is because I don't think that storyline would add too much to the overall feel of what Inuyashiki should be. I think this storyline, yes, it had the potential to be a really strong storyline, but overall it doesn't it doesn't feel like it'll move the main attraction that far.
That is an interesting argument because it is pretty self-contained. It's just like a heroic adventure against they quickly set up and another example of like a really short scene that was like when they're in the house, like Satoru and the girl. There's a scene where they call Satoru and they like try and get the information for the address. From him, and he's like, who is this? And it's like, we're the police. Your girlfriend was in an accident. I don't know who you are. I don't recognize this number. And they're like, just give us the number, you fucking stupid faggot bitch.
Whoa. I don't remember that at all.
It's like it didn't happen in the episode. They cut it out. It's like a one or two page scene from the manga.
By the way, you probably can't monetize that.
Yeah, I can't monetize anything on the second channel.
Okay.
But hey, I'm not using that word derogatory. Like literally, if you go to the chapter, that's what they say, and it makes sense for that. That's what evil Yakuza men would say.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Like it's a really strong story. Like, I kind of wish like this would have happened in something like Gantz, like instead of Inuyashiki. I think this is like a really strong storyline in general, but with in context with like what the main protagonist is and the main antagonist are, like it's more like it's like a side dish. Like
it is true. Like the main conflict is Shishigami and Inuyashiki facing off. They're like they're the L of the light of this universe, and that's what the main series is. I mean, you're right in the sense that like we don't want like 5 episodes of Yakuza action, even if this guy is like the scariest Yakuza ever, and there are like a few extra things that would have maybe like built up the tension a little bit more.
Yeah, like man, I just this episode felt so. Is the word cathartic I'm looking for?
Yeah, I think so. Because, like, you see, like, a really bad guy establishes, like, he's the worst. He's, like, murders people by overdosing them with the drugs. And, like, he's straight up, like, I'm going to rape you all the time. And then I'm going to drug you up till you go to heaven. And there's nothing you can do about it. You're mine.
Yeah.
There's no sense of romance. He's Harvey Weinstein on steroids.
Oh, my God.
The ultimate example of male privilege run amok.
Oh my God, that is like so horribly true. It's like...
There's not even like, hey, I can get you a movie deal. We can dine and romance. You're beautiful.
He skips all that. It's just...
I am this horrible criminal who is above the law. I'm just like not even going to like attempt to. I like you. You're not. I never had anything like you. I'm gonna rape you and drug you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Which is horrible, but that's what he is. And I do love it. One thing I loved in in this as well as the manga is like how like they did give her like a scene to fight back, but it felt believable. Mm-hmm. Like you're not gonna believe like some little shop girl is gonna like instantly be able to like kill someone with a katana she's never used, but she does like wound him and she does like cut his wrists, which like is like a small victory for her. And you're like, yeah, get out of there. And then, but still, like, he's the Terminator. He's going to find you and he's going to, murder your boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly. And your only hope is, like, for Inuyashiki to take notice of your situation. Like, you're, like, in some ways, it's essentially like a Superman protagonist. Like, with a story like this, like this is like small fry to someone like Superman, right? But like this is such a like horrific situation to like any normal person, like any normal. Like...
And it's even worse when the poor little guy's like groveling. I'll give you 5 million yen. I'll give you 10 million yen. I'll work in the commercial system. I'll go to a loan shark. And then the guy's like, I don't care. You're a sniveling piece of crap. He's like, while she's no, and then Inuyashiki comes.
Yeah. Oh my God. I loved it.
We deserve.
I loved it when Inuyashiki finally showed up and he's just like, yes, you're gonna take it to Yakuza. Yes. Oh my God. Just like all that build up just for that was like totally worth it for this episode.
Yeah, and the fact that he's just this like bony old man, like just continues to sell the impact that he's like, the contrast between like the super heroics versus the fact that like we don't get old men superheroes.
Yeah, and just like he's just a goofy old man, like from the outward appearance, and he's like destroying the Yakuza, like from the inside out.
Well, the best part is like when he fights, it's like not even cool. He's just like flailing about.
Yeah, that's the goofy old man aspect as well, just like on top of everything. And then he like whatchamacallit, goes into like death machine mode and like starts like annihilating the Yakuza with like by blinding them and paralyzing them. And like this is a perfect punishment for the Yakuza. It's just so brilliant. It's great. I'm almost speechless.
That they should like. I'm glad you like that cathartic moment where like their ability to harm and hurt other people is taken away, but he doesn't kill them, which is the ultimate superhero-ly thing to do. Yeah,
exactly. He wants them to reflect upon their actions as they're completely useless. Like it's a brilliant way to punish them with this kind of level of powers. Like it's fantastic.
It's like people you want to see like get like the worst thing, and they kind of have the worst thing where like all of their ability to abuse and cripple people is like completely taken away, but he still remains heroic where he just doesn't kill them outright.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like the lock on. And then they're all just laying on the floor. Oh God, I can't see anything. Get help!
Where's that old geezer?
I can't move. And then he like the poor girl's like stuck on, and she's like drugged again. Stuck her up with heroin or whatever.
I would love to see like a flash forward, like a time jump at like maybe 5-10 years down the line where the big guy's like blind and like paralyzed and he's like in the hospital or wheelchair or whatever. And he's just like, I want to see what he says like at that point in the story. Just like, that old geezer ruined my life or something like that.
You just want to see a continued payout. Well, sadly, I don't think you're going to get it unless they add it in. They got a lot of material to cover, and they're going to cover it in record time. Only 4 episodes. Man, that's like 20, 30 pages of manga. 4
episodes with 20 pages of manga crammed in?
Yeah, I think so.
That is a lot, but I'm so freaking pleased with everything going on in this series right now. This is like, man.
It was a pretty good moment. It was like one of my favorite moments of the manga, and it was definitely great to see it animated. I'm glad you enjoyed it so much. The ultimate catharsis.
I'm almost hesitant to give it a 10. Like I'm trying to think like why wouldn't I give it a 10? All right, I'll give it a 10. Just like
10.
I mean, I've been holding back a little bit on the 10s. I tried to give Dr. Stone today a 10, but that felt a little bit too generous. I'll give it 10. Why not? I'll give this one a 10.
Enjoying everyone's favorite geriatric manga hero. It was funny, though. What was your comment about the guy's voice, though? To me, it sounded perfect. It was exactly how I imagined him talking in the manga.
Yeah. I mean, he sounds like a loser.
Yeah, he sounded like a loser and a pathetic. But he's a simple guy who wants a simple thing with his simple, shitty salary, because I guess, 3 million yen probably converted into U.S. currency is like probably not that much. It's probably like, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30K or something.
I mean, they did a really good job selling the fact that he was like a kind of like a nobody. Like,
a nobody mediocre guy. Well, remember, it's like, hey, his proposal to get married is just, hey, let's get married.
Yeah.
He's just
like, wouldn't it be great if we could get married? And then, it's all like happy, it's almost like a, whatchamacallit? It feels like such a like plain, normal, like way of like proposing.
Well, it's the most average, normal, unexciting way to propose.
Yeah. But it doesn't feel like that like It doesn't feel like comically so. Like,
Well, it feels like this is a simple guy. He's not a very creative guy, but he's very sincere. So that's how he's going to do it.
yeah.
That's what he's going to do, and and that's why I liked his voice performance. It felt appropriate. It felt exactly how I sounded him in the manga.
Yeah, I didn't have any problems with it. It's just like I was surprised by like how much they were selling his normalcy.
His normalcy.
Yeah. And yeah, the voice caught me just a little bit off guard because I was thinking like to myself, he's just average dude. And then the voice just kind of like really like, okay, wow. Okay, very below or average or something.
Yeah. The ultimate, like, not even beta male, like, I don't know, what's below
Seta
beta?
male?
Seta male, yeah. The Seta male.
Yeah.
With his average girl, who I guess the Yakuza guy was like, I'm going to take it. And he's like, I want
She
an average
wasn't
girl.
even that average. She was above average.
They made her look prettier than, like, I think she was, the impression I got of her in the manga.
You sure? I mean, why would the big Yakuza guy, like, take her in the first place? So.
That was the impression I got, because he, like, in the original, in the beginning of the episode, they show, like, the girl who's, like, assumingly a Yakuza girl, and she's, like, dead, and he's like, yeah, I overdosed her on drugs, I want a new one. And then, like, he says to her, like, you're like nothing I've ever had before. So it's like, he's had, like, all these, like, extreme, like, counterculture girls that, like, what's exotic for him is, like, just, like, average counter girl.
Or someone who doesn't even know that kind of world that he lives in. Like, the world that Yakuza guy lives in is like, vastly different than her world. And how she reacts is like his excitement, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what he gets off on.
We can only assume that, like, the people he's been with, like the girl who was like had a Yakuza tattoo, so we can only assume that she's like a bit more extreme, a little bit more exotic than plain Jane, food counter girl.
Yeah, like she knows.
And for whatever reason, this seems to excite him.
Yeah. Yeah, and you could sort of see that without even, like, saying anything about it. You can tell, like, that is essentially what Yakuza guy is, like, going for when he sees this, like, plain-looking girl, like, working on the street. Working on the street, making an honest living. And you can just tell, like, by looking at, both of them, both of their characters, like, this is, like, gonna be a very, like, explosive situation here. It's like there's almost nothing you can do unless Inuyashiki like steps in,
because he's like a guy who takes whatever he wants, whether it's blowjobs in the shower from Yakuza or poor little food workers, and no one's gonna stop him because he's like this horrible person of the underworld.
He's a horrible person of the underworld who's ridiculously strong and has a lot of manpower.
Yeah, I do love that scene where he, like, the forced blowjob, just because it, like, shows that he's like he's an alpha predator among alpha predators. Yeah, like Yakuza are alpha predators that prey upon people, but he preys upon
other Yakuza.
Other Yakuza. That is just how big and horrible this guy is. Yeah. Wow. He's a shark that dines on other sharks. He's a cannibalistic human in the woods who eats other humans because that's the only way he gets a thrill.
Yeah. And just like how, like, you imagine like what his mindset is like. He thinks like he can get anything he wants. And then once he runs into Inuyashiki, like the goofy old man, his whole world changes. Like, yeah. Physically and literally. And that's a really interesting dynamic to, investigate as well. That, how his world is changed after meeting something as crazy as Inuyashiki.
Well, his world changes in that he could take anything and now he can take nothing.
Yeah, and he basically fucked up in the biggest possible way.
Yeah, yeah.
And paid
Pretty
for
much.
it dealer. Paid for it for the rest of his fucking life.
Yeah, which is satisfying because like he's just the worst. Like I can't think of a villain that you like hate and want to see like go down in like so little time. Like he ascends to like Joffrey level of like hatred.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Wait, by the way, what did you rate this?
I haven't given a rating. I'd give it. I did like it a lot, but the pacing bugged me, so I'm going to go 8.5. I think you made some good arguments in terms of like why you wouldn't, but just for there are some moments I think could have been directed a little bit better. It was still pretty well done, but like just knowing like that
Not even
scene,
a 9?
I mean, it was good, but like it just bugged me. Like the scene when Inuyashiki, here's a good example. Inuyashiki like goes into like machine destroyer mode, and then it jump cuts from him outside to him inside the Yakuza den shooting them all.
Okay.
That just like felt a little sloppy. It's like you couldn't have like 1 second of him like getting in there or like bursting in there after like attacking the guys outside. So like I still love the material, but those little things just like wore down on me where it felt like just a little too rushed. Like an example, like the scene of them trying to call the guy, like it doesn't do much for the story. It's not important to Inuyashiki, that one little 30-second scene of them trying to call him, but it's a great mood and tone that helps ratchet up the tension and sort of establish how hopeless of a situation they're in. I mean, your argument though is that like and it's a fair argument that like this is not the story to get focused on. We don't need 2 episodes of this like Yakuza thing because there are bigger fish to fry. There's Shishigami out there, and that's like the main draw of the story is those 2 characters. It's not a Yakuza drama.
Yeah.
So I can accept that argument, but I still feel like there's still a part of me that was like, oh, I wanted to see this like done as best as possible. But like, there were just like little sloppy things there that like would have made it like a better scene, a better directed scene.
Do you think reading the manga like had maybe change your perspective on this? Because I feel like maybe if I read the manga, I might be more inclined to agree with you there.
Well, an interesting thing, if you want to do this over the week, is like before we do the next episode, skim through the manga pages and see how you think it was adapted, and briefly before next week when we review the next episode, feel like if you thought it was done better in the manga. Because like for me, the manga was like 8+, and like this obviously wasn't as bad as like the Berserk material, but it did remind me a lot of like that thing where they took like an entire volume of Berserk where they go to like the Quillpulf dimension.
Oh god, yeah.
and like they condensed it down to 1 episode.
Okay, I could see when you say Quillpulf or whatever, however you freaking pronounce that, condensing that into like. How many episodes was that?
It was 1 episode. It was 1 episode.
That was like, that's so horrific what they did with that content. Oh my god, yeah.
It wasn't like nearly like there, but I do feel like for this, because there's like so much tension and buildup in this storyline, that it needed a little bit more room to breathe.
All right.
That's why, like, for me, it was like an 8.5. I still think they did a pretty good job. But, I think, like, there's a lot of great tension and suspense that was kind of lost in, like, rushing through it. But, still was, like, pretty good, though. It was still, like, strong content, because, like, it's an example of, like, the second episode where Shishigami, like, shoots the guy and then the kid drowns. Like, you didn't really get that scene in the manga, but that was like a brilliant choice to sort of like enhance the material of just the father's body falling on the kid and then the arms flailing.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a brilliant choice that like took harsh material, made it even more harsher, and was really well directed. So, and while this was like taking stuff out to like, we got to get this in one episode. We're going to do this in 1 episode, come hell or high water.
Anything about how they animated this that you enjoyed more than the manga?
No.
Really? So you say the manga is better?
I really like that. It was still a pretty good adaptation, though.
Okay.
I'd still say it was a really good, faithful adaptation, but I wouldn't say that it made the material better. Like a really good example of like something that's okay in the manga made better is like you remember Soul Eater?
Yes.
All right, so you remember Tsubaki, where they have the scene where she like fights her brother.
You have to remind me.
I know. It's like so. It's like very early in the anime. There's like Black Star, who's basically kind of like the parody of Naruto, and he's got like the little Asian girl as his like weapon.
Right.
And they have this whole episode kind of devoted towards her about how like she thinks she's so bland and boring, and then she fights her brother, who's like an evil demon stealing sword or something. And then there's like this really cool animated sequence.
Vaguely remember that.
I'll find a clip of it on YouTube and I'll show it to you. But then that was like okay material in the manga, but then Bones did such a good job animating it. They made it like much more poignant and meaningful in the anime than it was in the manga.
Mm-hmm.
That's an example of like something elevating it beyond its source material.
Okay, I need to see that. I'll have to check that out at some point.
Yeah, so it was a good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff all around. Huge contrast from Black Clover.
Yes, and we're gonna talk about Black Clover after this.
Oh yeah. We're gonna talk about Black Clover very soon. Okay, so nothing to show for today. Might be in the future. So remember, lobsters and tennis, but don't you grab it.
Yep.
Manga's made of iron, lobsters made of mates.